And I'm very pleased to have back in the studio with me Gayle Trotter, conservative writer, tax attorney, and co-founder of Shafer Trotter PLC. The website is Gayle, Gayle, Trotter, TROTTER.com. Gayle, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So you wrote an op-ed here, and this is your own opinion, not the opinion of your law firm.
Correct.
But
yes.
Yeah. Talking about how President Obama has a 57% disapproval with regard to foreign policy in the United States. And, you go through a whole list.
It's like a brief.
You want to summarize it?
Sure. It's like a 700-word brief about Obama's feckless foreign policy. So I go through, and I just limit myself to the Middle East. I don't talk about Russia or Asia, but I go through talking about his reaction to Syria. He drew a red line, and he said if Bashar al-Assad used chemical weapons, then he would take action, probably military action. And then when it was shown that Assad did that, he took no action.
Well, actually, he did. He got rid of all the chemical weapons.
They're didn't,
all
though.
Gone.
They didn't because it was shown that there were more attacks after that August-September attack that happened. There were continuing attacks that were being...
But the UN has certified that they're all gone. We destroyed them on an aircraft carrier off the coast.
No, it's not. That's not the case, though. It's not the case. And the more important point is that Obama was opposed. It was top of his list on foreign policy to have regime change in Syria and get rid of Assad.
Yeah,
and now he's gone back with ISIS, who are opposing Assad, and now he's going to team up with Assad to get rid of the Islamic State.
Right.
So in 1 year,
in the middle of this,
yes.
ISIS emerged out of the coalition of various Muslim groups that were fighting Assad.
Not just this year; it was prior to that, and the Obama administration is not unaware about this. I mean, it
was in 2013.
Yes,
and it followed a trip to Saudi Arabia by Lindsey Graham and John McCain, where they sat down with Prince Bandar bin Sultan, and said, "Please do something." And he said, "Okay, fine." And he's a Salafi. Saudi Arabia is the largest funder of Salafi movements across the world. The Salafis, the Wahhabists are one. This is where this cancer started. Was back in the 18th century, the original deal between the House of Saud and Mr. Wahhab.
Well, and you can even go back to the Barbary Pirates too. So
this actually predates the Barbary Pirates. This was 1775. But my point is that the Salafi movement includes not just Al-Qaeda, but also Boko Haram and ISIS and Hamas.
Yes.
These are all Salafi movements. John McCain and Lindsey Graham went over and said to Prince bin Sultan, Bandar bin Sultan, the president won't fund these people. Would you please? They did, and we got ISIS. Should we be bombing Lindsey Graham and John McCain?
Obviously not. We had a complete incoherent foreign policy put forth by President Obama, and we're seeing the disastrous effects of that.
And sabotage by McCain and Graham.
No, he needs to lead. Obama has this idea of leading from behind, and that's one of my arguments in this piece that I talk about in Libya. He was happy to lead from behind. He basically helped topple Gaddafi, and now we have a viper's nest of a hotbed of terrorists in Libya that's affecting all the way down to Nigeria. And we talk about these hashtag campaigns to bring back our girls. I haven't heard anything about that recently. Obama is failing to act effectively. He is feckless, he is weak, he is ineffective, and he has a completely incoherent foreign policy. My hope, if he had given that speech last week in response to the beheading, the message that was directly to President Obama and to all Americans, I would have liked to have seen him have a very strongly worded message, not just about airstrikes, not just about what the military effects were going to be, how we would respond to that, but to have a strong message that we will be strong. We will not tolerate attacks.
So you want more rhetoric?
I want action to back it up, but he's not even giving us. He is not even giving us the rhetoric right now. When he talked in that speech, he said no just God would be behind what these ISIS people did to Foley. And he got into kind of a religious discussion. But the truth is, we need strong words from our president, and he can't even give us strong words. I agree, but let's just get the words to start off with. Let's have a coherent policy.
Here we have John McCain and Lindsey Graham funding ISIS, and suddenly we've got an ISIS problem through the Saudis. You've got this. I think this is this. Have you read this? Saudis must stop exporting terrorism in the New York Times this weekend.
Well, I would agree with that.
It's an absolutely brilliant piece.
I have not read that piece, but
the only group now that is still funding the Salafi movements, including Boko Haram, including ISIS, is Saudi Arabia.
No, Turkey and Qatar are also funding.
Oh, Qatar, yeah. Club Med for Terrorists. This is in today's paper.
Who did we try to get help with the Israeli-Gaza conflict from? Turkey and Qatar.
And
from
Qatar is funding
President
Hamas.
Obama.
And Qatar is funding Hamas.
And what is Hamas? Hamas is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood,
it's part
which
of the Salafis.
President Obama supported when they had the overthrow, the coup in Egypt.
Maybe if we could strip the "I hate Obama, I defend Obama" out of this conversation, we would find we agree.
It's not a hatred of Obama. It's a complete
dislike, whatever you want.
No, it's not dislike. This is a brief. I'm a lawyer, so I'm going to make my argument based on facts. It's not out of a dislike.
But there has to be an alternative to that. If you are saying, I agree. Obama should not have said there's a red line in the sand in Syria, because taking down Assad is going to, the same thing in Libya, frankly. I mean, we look back on what we did.
Yes.
Same thing. And where was the original sin in this?
And what happened
It
with
was taking down
Gaddafi.
Saddam Hussein by Bush in Iraq.
How did Gaddafi decide to give up his chemical weapons and his weapons of mass destruction? Because he saw what America did in Iraq, that we had successful regime change, and we had the surge. We were able to get Iraq moving in a stable
We had successful regime change?
We did.
We have a success in Iraq right now?
No, because of President Obama, because he has an incoherent. His only strategic
so we're back to
plan.
It's all Obama's fault.
His only strategic plan for Iraq was
And what's your alternative? What should we have done? Put 500,000 soldiers in there?
Are we still in Germany? Are we still
We're
in
not
South
fighting
Korea?
in Germany. No, we're not fighting in South Korea.
And why are we not? Because we stayed there long enough that those countries could get back on their feet. We had the Marshall Plan. We were able to give them economic footing so that they could get back into the game. And we are still in those countries. And those countries do not have the same, millennial of struggles that the Middle East does. So why did President Obama think that he could turn tail and run out of Iraq and have it not be a conflagration?
Buzz phrases, turn tail and run. We still have an embassy in Iraq. I agree that we should be building schools. We should be rebuilding the infrastructure. The George W. Bush, with this insane war that he lied us into, has done incredible damage. 5 million displaced persons in Iraq, 200,000 plus, some estimates as many as 600,000 dead civilians as a consequence of our war. George Bush has so much blood on his hands he can't walk. He's painting pictures of himself being bathed.
Well, you're accusing me of making an argument based on dislike of Obama, and it sounds like your argument is solely based on dislike of Bush.
This is not a matter of dislike. There was no reason for us to take down Saddam Hussein and go into Iraq. There was none.
How can anyone with
Bush said in 1999 that he was going to do it so he could privatize Social Security.
You understood what was going on in Iraq, and we see, and this is the point of my piece. I start off my piece talking about the things that were happening. A woman is publicly executed in a stadium, and the crowd goes wild. We see historic religious shrines that are dynamited.
This is still going on in Saudi Arabia
and we see
right
women
now.
who are not able to get education, who are not able to leave their
homes
without fear of violence.
This is happening in Saudi Arabia right now.
And my piece talks about how this is, when I'm describing this is not talking about the tomb of Jonah being blown up by ISIS. This is what was happening in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, this 7th century dystopia, which was not good for anyone. And
which
now
was
we're
funded
seeing the
by
same
Saudi Arabia.
Thing in the Middle East. Who cares who it's funded by?
I care
what
because you've got you've got a source for this cancer. The source. The way that you solve it is you
feckless foreign policy.
You replace the regimes in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and good luck with that, because there's an absolute American consensus that these guys are our allies.
We don't even need to do that.
What do we need to do? Start bombing Iraq again?
We are bombing Iraq.
You really think any of these countries are going to respond?
We are already bombing Iraq, and that is where President Obama's policy has taken us, but in a way that we are at a disadvantage. We cannot have the kind of intelligence and the boots on the ground that we need there to be successful.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Okay, Gayle Trotter, GayleTrotter.com. Thank you, Gayle.
Thanks for having me.
Always good debating with you. We'll be back.